The year 2009, the massacre that has taken place in Mullavaikal, Sri Lanka. No action or peace was taking place in order for the Tamil community who faced a genocide. In 2010, CMR employee Raghavan Parachodi interviewed an eyewitness who was in the midst of the war zone named Yarlini, who was a British and a Tamil. 14 years later, we would like to bring up the same interview to build awareness to the newer generation of the Tamil community. Here's a video.
Hello. In our last show, we talked about an expected cargo ship carrying Tamil migrants at the port of Esquimalt, BC. It is now a story that the world knows about. It has been the conversation at dinner tables, and it has also been the root cause for heated arguments on radio shows. The truth of the matter is, 492 Tamils have landed in Vancouver seeking asylum and are in detention for screening purposes. The Government of Canada and its response thus far has been praised by UNHCR, United Nations Refugee Agency. While Canada seems to be divided on whether these people should be allowed into the country or not, the Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada is diligently doing this screening on merit to see if each of these claimants meet the requirements needed to be refugees in Canada. At this juncture, it might be helpful to know what these people were fleeing from. I sat down with Thamilvany, a young biomedical scientist who happened to be caught in the final stages of the war in Sri Lanka last year. Here's what she has to say. Thank you for giving us some time to speak to you about the final experience of, or your experience during the final days of the Mullavaikal massacre, Thamilvany. Thanks for joining us today. I know it might be hard reliving those days again, almost a little past a year. But it is something that you are an eyewitness to and a lot of people do not know about. Yeah. So if you can, start off by saying how and when did you get to Thamilvany from your resident country of UK?
That's right.
Yeah. And then how did you get into all of this?
Well, I was born in Jaffna, and after the displacement, 1994, I left Jaffna and left the country, and me and my family as a refugee went to UK, and I did my studies since then in UK. During the ceasefire time, I wanted to go back to Thamilvany to see my relatives and the country and friends and families, but then unfortunately I didn't have the visa in UK, so I couldn't go. But in 2007 I finished my degree. I'm a biomedical scientist, and then I've decided that before I start my job, I wanted to take about 6-month break away from studies and work. Wanted to spend the time back home. So in 2008, February, the month of February, I decided to go to Thamilvany. And I went there and I've stayed with one of my cousin brother there.
In 2008, things were relatively peaceful.
It was, yeah. I didn't have any problem entering into Thamilvany, or during my stay there for the first about 6 months, no problem at all. I know there were war going on sort of Manna side, but nowhere near inside Thamilvany. So. Right.
And what were you doing there in Thamilvany?
I was with my cousin and sort of going around and looking at places like we to Kilnochi, Pukurirupu, places like that. And then I was invited to teach English in one of the Tamil youth centers in Visumadu. So I was teaching them English as well as computer and some other courses there. That's how life went for me there.
And then when the war escalated and when the Sri Lankan army started moving in closer to the Thamilvany region in Kilnochi and all that stuff, I'm sure your teaching job became pointless at that time. What were you doing and what was the situation like for the general populace?
For the first time I witnessed the displacement and the people's struggle was in November when the Kilnochi displacement started. So November 2008, when Kilnochi people has to move from Kilnochie and they came down to Wiswamadu. That's the time I realized that the people are actually moving out, and it's a struggle. And especially during that time it was raining a lot as well, so people didn't have places to stay, and they were on the road with temporary tents and things like that. Though even then I just didn't think that we would ever have to move away from Wiswamadu. I thought that's it, you know, from Kilnochie, and that's it, that's the last displacement. But then in January 2009, when I have to, I mean, as in Wiswamadu, everyone from Wiswamadu has to move away from there, which is sort of, you know, I just sort of realized this is not going to stop. The war has started, and it's no point that, at this point, that I'm going to go out from here. Because during that time, even when the Kilnochie displacement took place, I was helping out with the people, going around and helping around, you know, during their stays, sort of, you know, in the temporary tents and things like that. So I choose to stay and help the people. That Wiswamadu displacement has affected so much, because people were actually, like, you know, running to save their life. Shell bombs everywhere, and, you know, running around. At that time, it's like, for the people who displaced from Mannar, it's already like their 20th, 26th displacement. So at that point, most of the people have lost all their properties, or, you know, most of their belongings and everything. They only had like one piece of handbag, luggage with them, that's all. So it was a really different and a difficult situation for me to experience.
How much of your biomedical science education come in handy at that time?
Well, not much to the beginning, but then in April sometimes, when I was like sort of, you know, at the beginning of Mulivaikal, one of the doctors from the hospital has asked me to come and help in the hospital, because at that time it was like short of medication as well as people voluntarily helped in the hospital. There was only 5 doctors for the whole population in Vani. So there was volunteers wasn't enough to look after the people in the hospital. So I was asked to come and help. So in April I went into the hospital to help them. And it was totally a disaster, you know, working in the hospital, because compared to the hospitals I've seen abroad, it's totally different. It doesn't have the basic needs of a hospital. I mean, in fact, it wasn't any hospital anyway in the first place. It was, they have to displace the hospital every time they move around to a school or some sort of building. So it wasn't like a proper hospital building. It didn't have any of the facilities as a hospital. So it was a really difficult situation for me to handle, actually, because I am not sure about things, how it's done, and, you know, everything is new to me. You know, without wearing gloves and without even the medical, like proper medical equipments. I found it really hard to cope with the situation in there. But after about 2-3 weeks, it sort of, because every day you get hundreds and hundreds of wounded people come in, and sort of you're running around doing everything around, I sort of, you know, realized that this is the reality. This is what is a hospital here, so I have to cope with it and sort of, you know, start. So then I sort of start helping out, and I assisted the doctors mainly inside the operation theatre. So
obviously the doctors had to make do with whatever they had. There wasn't enough medication available. The hospitals being displaced themselves, I don't imagine they carried a lot of the medical equipment or medication with them. Now, you mentioned there were hundreds of people arriving to the hospitals every day with wounds of various nature. How many of these people were hopeful that they'll survive, or how did you and the rest of the doctors manage to save?
It was a very hard decision for us to make, actually, because anyone with a head injury, we wouldn't even go and look at them, because there's no way that we can take that patient in and do a surgery on them. There's no equipments. I mean, one time we have to cut off a 6-year-old boy's leg and the arm completely without even giving him local anesthetic. That's how the situation was there. So, I mean, after I've seen that little boy crying out. I fainted. I just couldn't take that, couldn't cope with that situation.
Right.
For a 6-year-old boy without local anesthetic, cutting off. I mean, cutting off as in like it wasn't a proper equipment to cut off the, it was like a knife, a butcher's knife. That we have to cut off the 6-year-old boy's leg and the arm. So, and also blood, shortage of blood. So before taking the patient in, we have to make sure that we have enough blood to supply them. Otherwise, there's no point doing a surgery on someone that if you can't give them blood.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to make, it was very difficult for the doctors and us to make a decision who to take in.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, at times when we have to collect the waste blood from the patient themselves and then sort of filter it with a white piece of cloth and then re-enter into them, which is, I don't think that it ever had in medical history would have happened ever. So that's how it was. Very difficult situation, the hospital. I just, you know, it's, I can imagine how the people were.
Obviously, the situations in the hospitals were very bad, and this was something that was known to the rest of the world as well. But there were a lot of other things that were hidden from the rest of the world. Stuff like, you know, these people were being displaced constantly, and under the pretext of fighting a war against terrorism and fighting this group called LTTE, there were allegations that the Sri Lankan government was targeting innocent Tamil civilians. You were there. Was that the case? Did you feel that way?
It was in the hospital mainly because from April to May, about 4 times the hospital got bombed, knowing that it's a hospital. I mean, I witnessed it when the first time the hospital was bombed. About 2 hours before, we have been asked to put up a Red Cross on top of the ceiling, on the roof, to show that this is a hospital. So obviously the government side, they know it's a hospital. Knowing that it's a hospital, about two hours after that, we had the shell bomb right in top of the roof.
So it was a target.
It was targeted because they know, they can't deny that they don't know it's a hospital. They know it's a hospital. They know, from their GPS, they know where the hospital is located. Every time the hospital is moved to different places, the doctors make sure that they pass the information that this is a hospital. This is where it's,
and what was the channel you used to pass that information?
The doctors had communication with the medical,
with the government side.
The government side medical council. So they were passing the message through. So obviously they know, they can't deny that they don't know it's a hospital. And the first time it was targeted, and the second time even right into the hospital. Again in 12th of May was attacked again, knowing that it's a hospital. So I would just, you know, I can be sure that it was targeted. The government can't deny that they don't know it's a civilian's hospital. They don't know that they're, you know, attacking a hospital.
Nothing should exist beyond the no-fire zone. Nothing should. How can you? This is
just to be clear. So even if this hospital is operating,
no
if it's outside of the safe zone, it's a legitimate target.
Yes.
Obviously, Sri Lankan government officials came out on media and said, whether it's hospital or not, it's a legitimate target for us when we're fighting terrorists. There were allegations that the LTTE used Tamil civilians as human shield. This was one of the strongest points that the Sri Lankan government kept putting forward. Were you witness to that? Did you see such a thing happen?
Well, no. I don't believe it's that case because people choose to stay. I mean, I was there only for about, what, 1 year or something. I didn't want to leave the home where we were living. It was so sentimentally very attached to me. I just felt really hard to leave that Visomadu and, you know, displaced to a different place. I think most people there had the same feeling. They choose to stay because it's their belonging, it's their life, it's their house. Nobody wanted to just, you know, sort of run away from there and, you know, leave their places. So it wasn't like, you know, the LTT kept them. It's just the people choose to stay. They wanted to stay in their own places. I choose to stay because I didn't want to leave that place. I felt sentimentally so attached to that place. So I don't believe in the allegation that LTT has used. I didn't witness, personally, I didn't witness any of that, no.
And you kept serving in the hospitals, and what happened after that? At one point in time, I'm sure that working in the hospital became, undoable too.
That's right. After the attack, I think it was the date 12th of May when we had the attack in the hospital. The doctors have decided that there's no way we can run this hospital anymore because hardly none of the medications left at that point. No supply were there, and nothing we could do. We would just have to, the doctor said, well, just have to leave and go. There's nothing we can do here. So I think on the 13th night that I've decided, I was told to just leave the hospital and just go. So we just left it on the 13th, and I came back with my cousin.
So all of those people that you were taking care of and all those patients that were hoping that they'll get some kind of medical attention were just left there because there was no other choice.
Yeah, there's no choice. We didn't have any supply at all. No, none of the medications were left at that time. So just have to leave them and go.
Was it because the medication ran out, or was it because of the bombing?
Both, actually. Both. Because there's no medication. On top of it, there's the continuous shell bombs inside the hospitals. There's no way we can stay, outside and save the people. So we just have to leave that place immediately, and just left.
And then when the Mullivaikkal massacre itself, which is the final days, where were you at that time?
On the 16th of May, when, I've left the hospital on the 39th, 14th, I think. I can't remember the right dates. Then, I stayed with my cousin, and then on the 16th, finally there was a talk in between amongst the people that some sort of international help is coming. And I heard before as well, the media, the international has given report that if the people come out from the area, we will look after them, we will take care of it. So there was a hope that the international is coming in, and they're going to take us, and they're going to take care of us, and we're all going to go back to our places. That's what's going to happen. So we were all waiting for the ICRC ship to come through, or some sort of organization to come through to help us. Until about 4:30 we waited there. Nothing happened. And with the continuous shell bombs as well, we didn't have a choice but to just leave the place and walk out. Until I saw the army officers, military officers, I wasn't even imagining that we were coming into an army-controlled area. So then it was like a military order sort of thing. Just walk straight and that's it. It was like walking in the dark. Nobody knew where they're going, what's happening to them, what's going to happen to them, where we're going, nothing.
So when you said after 4:30 you decided you were all going to walk out,
yeah.
You were all going to walk out of the LTT controlled area into the government side. Did you know that's what you were doing, or you were just walking somewhere?
Just walking straight on the road, and that's it. Nobody knew that they're going out away from the LTT controlled area into army controlled area. Well, I wasn't aware of it. We were just walking towards wherever we can go, just walk.
The Sri Lankan government said that they were calling for people to come into their controlled area so that they can rescue them. Was that the scenario, or was it just people randomly walked in?
Well, people just randomly walking. I didn't hear any announcement. I didn't come up, witnessed any of the announcements. No, just walking. Just following each other.
And how many people walked out and how many people stayed back?
Well, I'm not quite sure about that, because at that time there's no way you would sort of look around you. Shell bombs everywhere. You only care about yourself, and it's just that, that feeling that just walking, that's it. You just don't have that mind set up to look around what's happening around you. So I can't really give a number how many people have moved out, but mostly May 16th, most of the people are out.
There were video reports from the war region that when people were walking away, or people were still running somewhere hoping for refuge, saw lots of other people left uncared, dying on the sides of the streets, and what was that reality?
It is, yeah. I've witnessed it as well, where people, injured people, especially who can't walk and sort of needed help, they were actually sitting on the side of the road asking help, like, you know, help us to sort of, you know, walk, or help, you know, take us as well, which most people did help them, you know, try to hold them and sort of, you know, try to walk them with them. But there were many other left as well, because nobody had that sort of a mindset to sort of sit around and look, you know, what's going around. They just wanted to, you know, just walking and following each other, and just, that's all.
So you came into, you walked into the military controlled area, and what happened thereafter?
Well, I had a feeling that because I had my passport and, you know, I was a foreigner, that I might, you know, easily out, and sort of I'll just go and give my passport and, you know, sort of, you know, come out. That's the feeling I had, because I had the, you know, expectation there's an international bodies out there to help us. So that's how I was going. But only after, on the May 18th, when I went into the camp, I realized that that's it. There's no way out from here. I'm in a prison, and, you know, it's not going to be an easy way out. And the shocking news was that until about 2-3 days, I haven't seen any of the international organizations. Nobody came around. Nobody was there. It was only UNHCR. Then about 3 days after they came in, that I was able to talk to someone who can speak English, as well as, you know, someone who I can explain the situation. Then only sort of, you know, I started helping, getting help.
And then, and obviously, you somehow managed to get out of there. What was the situation of the rest of the people when you left?
Well, everyone was waiting to come out from their camps. I think the most people had you know, the feelings they had was like, we would have, you know, died. It would be happy for us to die in Vanni than come here and sort of go through this struggle, because there wasn't any basic needs for the, like, none of the, for a human being to live. There's no basic facilities in their camps, not even clean water to drink, no sanitation, infections and malnutritions. A lot of the, you know, kids were dying, and there were no proper medical facilities there. So most people had the feeling that, you know, why did we come? We'd rather die in Vanni than just come here in the prison, you know. It wasn't like an open prison. That's the word I could describe the camp as.
Now that it's almost a year past, there are still about 80,000 or more people that are fenced inside barbed wires. What do you tell the world about the conditions of those people, and have you had any contacts with any of those people since?
Well, I had most of my friends and relatives in the camps. I was, you know, keep talking to them and sort of, you know, getting the, what's happening and current situation there. Even though the people are, most people are away, you know, out from the camps, people are still not satisfied. They're not still happy, because they've been asked to go to a place which the government wanted them to go and live, not what the people wanted. People has been sort of, you know, rehoused and resettled in Jaffna and some other places where the people didn't, you know, it's not their choice. They were asked to go, forced to go and stay. So in that way, I think, you know, we as diaspora community has to do a lot of the work to give them, the people, some sort of a relief from all this. And we have the biggest responsibility to do something. And I mean, how I see the international is that they wanted to, in the sort of, you know, in the process of trying to eliminate the LTT, the international community has intentionally let the Tamil civilian die, and they still
continue to do that.
Continue to make them suffer. And we as the diaspora Tamil community need to stop that. We need to help our people. It's our people.
Well, let me ask you this. As someone who's been there, been through that experience, been an eyewitness to a lot of these things, your position is very different from most of us or most others. Do you feel that when you try and advocate for these people, when you try and explain your personal experiences, people are able to understand at least a bit of what might be happening to those people?
Yeah, I've spoke to a lot of the people, and I think after explaining the situation, because what they see in the televisions and the videos and news and things like that is not actually what's happening there. And after I came back to UK, I've talked to a lot of the people and sort of go around and explain to them, like, this is a real situation of the camp. It's not what you see on the television. This is what I saw. This is what I witnessed. And people are able to understand that and sort of working on that, trying to. I think most of the people now sort of realize that they have the responsibility to do something. And that's what I want as well. Every single Tamil diaspora need to understand that they have the responsibility to do something for these people. And it must be done now.
As a UK citizen, do you take this up with parliamentarians or members of the political circle in the UK?
Well, I'm working on that at the moment, so I just wanted to, make a solid. I want to stand in a position where I can go and convince the politicians to do something. So I'm actually working on that.
Thank you for your time, Thamilvany.
Thank you.
CMR YouTube சேனலில் இணைந்திருக்கும் நேயர்கள் அனைவருக்கும் எமது நன்றி. காமெண்ட்ஸ் பகுதியில் உங்கள் கருத்துக்களை தெரிவிக்க தவறாதீர்கள். முக்கிய செய்திகள், காணொளி தொகுப்புகள், நேர்காணல் என பலதரப்பட்ட அம்சங்களையும் உங்களுக்காக தருகின்றது CMR YouTube சேனல். CMR என்று சர்ச் செய்து எமது யூடியூப் சேனலை சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணுங்கள். உங்கள் உற்றார் உறவினர் நண்பர்களோடும் இந்த காணொளி தொகுப்புகளை பகிர்ந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். அருகில் இருக்கின்ற முக்கிய காணொளி தொகுப்புகளையும் தவறவிடாமல் பாருங்கள்.